Catacombs of Paris. How intriguing it may be to visualize crypts of dead people. However, the difference will be the crypts are buried open on the walls, where you could apparently see the scars of the dead. The concept of it is scary and captivating at the same time. Imagine you have to encounter a house where you are looking at the scars of the dead around your surroundings. The visualization are scary, isn't it? A city that is popular for its romantic vibes and known as the City of Love, Paris, has some dark secret to it. Paris, the capital of France, is often called La Ville Lumière, meaning the City of Light. However, beneath the bustling European city of 12 million people lies a dark subterranean world holding the remains of 6 million of its former inhabitants. These are the Paris catacombs, a network of old caves, quarries, and tunnels stretching hundreds of miles and seemingly lined with the bones of the dead. Some areas are open to the public as a museum, but since 1955 entrance to the majority of the underground space is prohibited. However, this hasn't stopped some thrill seekers venturing into the cavernous passage that have been home to thousands upon thousands of bones of the dead. As the water table has risen under the city, many of these spaces are now filled with cold and clean water. Locals are well aware of this, and according to Bob Times, this years-long sweltering summer has seen an increase in illegal entrance to the catacombs as people seek a respite from the heat by using the subterranean pools as cooling zones. But these desperate measures could have been dire consequences. Just last month, two teenagers were rescued from the catacombs after being lost in the West network for 3 days. They were found by rescue dogs and were taken to the hospital to be treated for hypothermia. Origins of the Paris catacombs. The Paris catacombs have their origins in a limestone quarry situated on the outskirts of the city. This natural resource has been in use since the time of the Romans and provided construction material for the city's buildings as well as contributed to the city's growth and expansion. It was only during the second half of the 18th century, however, that the former limestone mines were transformed into burial places. By the 18th century, Parisian cemeteries such as Les Innocents, the largest cemetery in Paris, were becoming overpopulated, giving the rise to improper burials, open graves and unearthed corpses. Quite naturally, people living close to such places began complaining about the strong stench of decomposing flesh and the spread of disease from the cemeteries. In 1763, an edict was issued by Louis XV banning all burials from the capital. The church, however, did not wish to disturb or move the cemeteries and opposed the edict. As a result, nothing was done. The situation persisted until 1780, when an unusual long period of spring rain caused all the Les Innocents to collapse, resulting in the spilling of rotting corpses into a neighboring property. By this time, the French authorities were forced to take action. In 1786, the former tombstone Ijour quarries were blessed and consecrated, turning them into the Paris catacombs. It took 2 years for all the bones from the Les Innocents to be transferred to the catacombs. Over the following decades, the bones of the dead were removed from cemeteries around Paris for burial in the catacombs. Furthermore, the practice of burying the newly dead directly in the catacombs began after the French Revolution. It was only in 1859 that the final transfer of bones was undertaken during the renovation of Paris by George Eugene Haussmann, and the work was finally completed in 1860. 7 years later, the catacombs were opened to the public. In total, the winding catacombs stretch over 300 kilometers, or 186 miles. There is a video on the internet with a guy running away and running from something in the catacombs in Paris. It is said that if you go alone in the Paris catacombs, you will never be found again. And as you can see on the video, what is circulating on the internet, the guy falls with his camera in a puddle and then the sound suddenly snaps and nothing is heard again. So beware, don't go to the catacombs of Paris alone.